The human mind is remarkably resilient, until isolation strips away every familiar anchor. In remote wilderness, forgotten buildings, or cut-off rural pockets, ordinary people can become prisoners of geography and circumstance. What follows are three real-world inspired accounts of innocents trapped in isolated areas, each facing different demons: nature's indifference, human malice, and the slow unraveling of the self. These are stories of endurance, terror, and the razor-thin line between survival and surrender. The Lost Hiker, Denali National Park, Alaska, inspired by the 2019 disappearance cluster and real backcountry incidents. 24-year-old Emily Chen, a software engineer from Seattle, had always dreamed of summiting Mount Denali. In late June 2023, she flew into Talkeetna, rented a satellite phone she barely knew how to use, and joined a small guided group for the West Buttress route. On day 4, a sudden whiteout blizzard descended. Winds over 80 miles per hour, visibility zero. The group became separated during a desperate retreat to high camp at 17,200 feet. Emily slipped into a crevasse while trying to follow a fixed rope. She fell only 12 feet but landed awkwardly on a narrow ice ledge inside a narrow slot. Her right ankle snapped. The rope above her had torn free in the wind. She was alive but utterly alone. For the first 48 hours she stayed calm. She activated her emergency beacon. The PLB signal reached the Alaska Rescue Coordination Center within minutes, rationed her last energy bar and 300 milliliters of water, and talked herself through the pain using breathing techniques she'd learned from yoga apps. But the storm raged for 5 full days. Temperatures plunged to minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit with wind chill. Her fingers blackened from frostbite. The beacon battery died on day 4. Psychologically, the real torment began on day 3. In the pitch-black crevasse, time dissolved. She began hearing voices, her mother calling her name, her college roommate laughing at an old joke. She knew they were hallucinations, yet she answered them aloud, desperate for any sound besides wind howling across the ice lips above. On day 6, the weather finally broke. A Park Service helicopter crew spotted the faint red of her jacket against the blue ice during a grid search. A long-line rescue lowered a paramedic. Emily was hypothermic, severely dehydrated, and suffering from acute compartment syndrome in her leg. She spent 3 weeks in Anchorage Hospital, lost 3 fingers and most of her right foot to amputation, but she lived. Emily later said the worst part wasn't the cold or pain. It was the silence. When you can't even hear your own heartbeat over the wind, you start wondering if you're already gone.
The abandoned cabin, Ouachita National Forest, Arkansas, inspired by multiple real cases of squatters, hunters, and the 2021 cabin killer incident. In October 2022, 19-year-old college freshman Malik Thompson drove from Little Rock to the Ouachita Mountains for a solo weekend camping trip to clear his head after a breakup. He parked at a remote trailhead off Highway 270, hiked 8 miles in, and set up beside an old Forest Service cabin marked "Closed Unsafe" on his map app. The first night was peaceful. On the second day, a cold front rolled in with heavy rain. The trail turned to slick mud. Flash flooding made the creek crossings impossible. Malik decided to wait out the storm in the abandoned cabin rather than risk hypothermia in his tent. The cabin was a single room, rotted floorboards, broken windows patched with cardboard, a rusty wood stove, and a mildewed mattress in the corner. He barricaded the door with a fallen beam and built a small fire in the stove using splintered furniture. That night, he heard footsteps on the porch. At first he thought it was another hiker seeking shelter. Then the doorknob rattled, slowly, deliberately. A man's voice called out, calm and friendly. "Hey, anybody in there? Storm's bad. Just looking for a dry spot." Malik stayed silent, heart hammering. The man circled the cabin, tapping on windows, whistling softly. After 20 minutes he left. Malik exhaled, until he heard the unmistakable sound of an axe striking wood at the back wall. The intruder was methodical. He chopped through the rotten siding over 2 hours while the rain masked the noise. Malik tried to call 911, 0 bars. His in-reach satellite messenger had been left in the car to save battery. He hid in the tiny attic crawl space above the drop ceiling, clutching a rusted hunting knife he'd found under the mattress. At 3:17 a.m., the man broke through. Malik watched through a crack as the intruder, a tall figure in a hooded rain poncho, searched the room with a flashlight, muttering to himself. He found Malik's backpack, rifled through it, then sat on the mattress and waited, knife in hand. Dawn brought salvation. A sheriff's deputy on routine storm patrol noticed Malik's car at the trailhead and hiked in after seeing fresh axe marks on nearby trees. The intruder fled when he heard the deputy's radio. Malik was found curled in the attic, severely dehydrated, suffering from shock and mild hypothermia. The man was never caught, but deputies later linked the cabin to 3 prior missing persons reports in the area over 5 years. Malik now carries 2 satellite devices and never enters the backcountry alone.
The Stranded Motorist, Nevada Test and Training Range Perimeter, Groom Lake Road, Area 51 Back Gate. In July 2024, 32-year-old travel blogger Jenna Morales decided to film a night drive to the extraterrestrial highway for her YouTube channel. She left Las Vegas at dusk, drove north on US 93, turned onto the unmarked Groom Lake Road, and kept going past the warning signs until her 2019 Subaru Outback suffered a blowout on a washboard gravel section 32 miles from the nearest pavement. No cell service, no passing traffic after 9 p.m. The temperature was still 98 degrees Fahrenheit, dropping to the 60s by midnight. Jenna had water for 1 day, a half-charged power bank, and a thin emergency blanket. She changed the tire, but discovered the spare was also flat, dry-rotted from sitting unused. She decided to walk toward the restricted gate at the back entrance to Area 51, hoping to flag down security or a rare passing vehicle. She walked 11 miles before her phone died and exhaustion set in. She curled up beside the road under her blanket. At sunrise, she woke to the sound of an approaching vehicle. A white security pickup from the Camo Dudes, private security contractors, stopped. The guards were curt but not hostile. They gave her water, confirmed she was on restricted federal land, and radioed for a tow. They also warned her that leaving the vehicle unattended could result in it being impounded. What followed was 41 hours of bureaucratic limbo. Because she had crossed onto Nellis Air Force Base restricted territory, Jenna was detained at the gate shack while the Air Force and Lincoln County Sheriff argued jurisdiction. She was not arrested, but she was not allowed to leave or use her phone. Food, MREs, and water were provided, but she slept on a metal bench inside a windowless concrete building under constant surveillance. The psychological toll was immense. She later described the isolation as being erased. No one knew where she was. Her Instagram story stopped abruptly. Her family filed a missing persons report. Only after 41 hours, once the tow truck arrived and paperwork was completed, was she escorted off base and released at the Tickaboo Valley Viewpoint. Jenna's video eventually went viral with the title, "I Got Detained at Area 51, What Really Happened." She now advocates for better roadside emergency preparedness and carries a Garmin InReach on every trip. These 3 stories lost in a crevasse, hunted in an abandoned cabin, bureaucratically imprisoned on forbidden land illustrate the same brutal truth. Isolation magnifies every weakness. The wilderness does not care. Predators exploit vulnerability. Even institutions can become cages. Preparation matters. Satellite communication, redundant water, a charged power bank, a paper map, basic self-defense knowledge. But the most important tool is mental resilience, the refusal to let silence convince you that hope has already died. If these accounts chilled you, reminded you to stay vigilant, or simply fascinated you with the limits of human endurance, hit subscribe for more real survival stories, true crime deep dives, and lessons from the edge of nowhere. Turn on notifications so you never miss when innocents are trapped and how they fight to get free.